without further ado, let's get right down to it. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the Pro Wrestling Report on 540 ESPN, the legendary Kevin Nash. Kevin, welcome to the Pro Wrestling Report.
Thank you. You guys better watch out playing that Diesel music. You might get a cease and assist.
We expect such things. Kevin, thank you so much for joining us late night here on Monday. Obviously, busy time in your career, working with TNA Wrestling and coming to Milwaukee coming up just at the end of this week for the Big Blizzard Brawl show. Let's talk about that. Let's talk to our listeners all over the world at PWRshow.com and here in southeastern Wisconsin on 540 ESPN. Just give us a brief synopsis as to how you got your start in the professional wrestling business back in around, looks like 1990 or so.
Yeah, I actually was broken in by Jody Hamilton down in Atlanta. It was pre-power plant. It was kind of they had an agreement where WCW guys would work there. Actually, back then it was actually the NWA, and that's kind of where I got started. And I got my start at the Clash of Champions in '90.
And we said legendary. I mean, you've been 5-time WCW champion. You were WWE champion as well. You've been on the top of all the major wrestling companies that have just about ever existed. Obviously, wrestling now is drastically different than when it was when you first got into the business, and even when you were as WCW and WWE champion. Currently, obviously, working with TNA Wrestling. What is the good and the bad about the business right now as you see it?
Well, when I got in the business, the marks were in the ring. I mean, the marks were in the crowd, and now the marks are in the ring. So
yeah,
it's just different. I mean, I walked in the ring and walked in the locker room for the first time, and there was nothing but men in the locker room. Guys like Rude and Henning, and you walk in the locker room now, and it's there's a lot of young kids. So it's just it's different.
Is there still the opportunity for these young kids, as you say, to do as most other professional wrestlers did, which is pay their dues, as everyone says, across the country on the independent shows, on the independent circuit, which is vastly different now than it was back in the day? Or has wrestling changed that much where this is just the state of the business?
I mean, definitely. I mean, I think everything's is cyclic. I think right now if you're a young guy that's breaking into the business and think you're going to make a bunch of money when the economy's the way it is, it's no different if you were to break into Wall Street or anything else. I mean, you've got to pretty much look at where the economy is. I think there's some great young talent. I've got a chance to get out and get touches with AJ and Joe, and I think those are guys that are going to be around for 20 years after I'm long gone. There's some great young talent. I think the Motor City Machine Guns are very talented. I'm a big fan of Robert Roode for us. I think that there's young talent there, but it's just, you look at Edge, and when Edge came in with Gangrel and that group, and you look how long it took him to become elevated. It took almost 5 years for Edge to become that main event guy. And that took, 2 or 3 years of kind of in that mix before he really kind of shined out of that. So, it's, there's a long period it takes for the crowd to really buy into a character and to change loyalties to a character. And, it's a process. And if anybody thinks that, that you can hotshot some guy and make him, you can push him and make him popular. I think that number one, I think the fans have gotten way smarter.
Yeah.
The fans are just very, very smart to how the process works,
and we use it, but we've said for a while that the internet ruined wrestling.
It's like anything else. You could say, the internet ruined wrestling as much as paparazzi, killed the fact that you could become a star in anything. It's a transgression of what happens in life. If you don't evolve, then you become a dinosaur and you die and you become extinct. So you either evolve with technology, The thing is, in wrestling, everybody's an expert. And to my knowledge, almost 90% of the people that write sheets or involved in sheets have never had a match.
Right. Yeah.
It'd be like somebody that's never cooked a meal sitting telling me that I'm a bad chef.
Valid point. This is the Pro Wrestling Report on 540 ESPN. Guys, you can join us all over the world on the PWR phone lines. The number locally here in Milwaukee is 276-ESPN, or if you're listening on the stream at pwrshow.com, you can call us at 1-800-990-ESPN. We'll take your questions for our guest right now, Kevin Nash, here on the show. Now, Kevin, you've been very vocal as of late about some of the good things and some of the bad things about TNA. We've had a lot of TNA talents on this program in recent weeks, such as Kurt Angle, Christy Hemme, the Motor City Machine Guns, Consequences Creed, and others. And, we've been to the Impact Zone. We've seen TNA, and it is certainly the other company right now as it pertains to wrestling fans. And one of the recent comments that you made was TNA struggling to get noticed. How do you think TNA should go about making sure that they get on that wrestling fans to the tip of their tongue and get in that vocabulary of it's not just WWE out there?
Well, I mean, I remember when WCW was number 2, and we ran billboards with Sting's face on it in Times Square, and we ran one right across from the WWE's headquarters, and we went out and spent some money,
Yeah.
It's kind of what you have to do.
The product is definitely there. And we get a lot of heat, actually, for talking as good as we do about TNA, and I don't understand that. But, what really happened was when we had the opportunity to go down to TNA Impact taping and to see the difference in the two companies was very obvious there, because TNA truly appreciates their fans. And if you go down the Impact Zone, you haven't paid to get in. You haven't necessarily bought merchandise or anything like that. They truly appreciate their fans and have this respect for the people that actually spend their time watching the product, which is what you don't get in WWE. Now, at the same time, WWE has this elitist kind of attitude to them, which they deserve to have, to be honest. But TNA has done the advertising. They've brought in the big names, and a lot of people have said that these big names haven't done anything. Now, everyone expects that the minute you sign a Christian Cage, the minute you sign a Mick Foley, that the ratings are going to shoot up to, 3 or 4 times where they are that week. And I don't even think this business is about the ratings anymore as much as the TV business is obviously about the ratings. But with no head-to-head wrestling war, I think it's a different scenario. But have these signings that TNA has made, these acquisitions from WWE, have they had an impact on the product?
I've always made an analogy that if you did The Godfather tomorrow, you shot the exact same film with Brando and Pacino and everybody else, and you spent $0 on publicizing the fact that this movie was coming out. You just put it on a couple of theaters and hope that it caught. Would The Godfather be what The Godfather is? Every big budget movie I've been on, whether it was The Longest Yard or Punisher or whatever else, even The Punisher, which was only probably a $60 million budget movie, they had $17 million for publicity. $17 million is a lot of money.
Oh, yeah.
And you can run a lot of ads. We should be running ads on SmackDown. We should be running ads on Raw. I watch it. I don't see it.
Yeah.
So, the bottom line is at one point, not too long ago, there was a 5 watching us and a 3-4 to 3-6 watching them. But there was an 8 or 9 between the two companies on a Monday night on a basis.
Every week. Right.
Right now there's about a 4 watching wrestling. Well, that 5 went somewhere. It didn't die because it's an 18 to 35 demographic.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some, like I said, I've walked through airports for the last 4 or 5 years, and people have said, "Hey, Kevin Nash, what are you doing now?" They're not aware of where I am. They're not aware that I'm on, that I'm on Spike TV and that I'm wrestling. So I don't know. I think that the guys in the ring are doing everything they can to bring notoriety to our brand. I just think we need to go out and brand it. So
we're speaking with Kevin Nash on 540 ESPN Pro Wrestling Report. Kevin, let's switch gears just a second. You still, let's say, go to sleep and sing Rocky Top before you go to bed?
No, I actually think, thank God, Fulmer's gone. Sorry, fat man. I think you ran your course.
Was that when you're at UT? What was it like playing basketball back then?
You know, I always had the different priorities in life. I always thought that, you know, the reason you played basketball was you didn't have a helmet on. So, like, you know, when you went to the bar that night, the chicks knew who you were. So, I had a good time down there.
You still keeping up with basketball at all? Are you watching the pro game or are you watching the college game?
I watched the Magic get crushed by Boston tonight.
But Boston crushes everybody. I mean, you know, here we got the Bucks, and well, everybody crushes the Bucks. So I mean, there's not really a lot of heat on the basketball around here too much anymore.
But actually, Orlando's got a decent squad. Mm-hmm. They got a couple of guys hurt right now, but well, I mean, they got dished by about 20 tonight. I turned it off. I actually watched a little bit of Raw tonight.
Let's go back to the WCW days, Kevin. And obviously, you were a major star in that company, always synonymous with that company. The company is no longer with us. And there are two things I want to ask you about. Firstly, what in your opinion, was the downfall of WCW? And secondly, did WWE bury WCW after they acquired it?
Well, number one, I mean, the downfall of WCW, and I've said this, you know, numerous times, and people will see, your wrestling people live in this wrestling bubble, and they forget that there's like this other whole world out there that kind of runs the business, and WCW just so happened to be purchased first. Actually, TBS was purchased by Time Warner,
right?
And which made Ted a rich man.
Yeah.
And I think stock went from $26 to about $56, and he was not diversified. Ted was basically just Time Warner. Then AOL came in because it was a dot-com boom, and the stock went to $73, and Ted was a really rich guy. And then the boom hit, and then it crushed and crashed, and our stock was worth $29, and the guys from AOL, and this is the thing that kills me, like there's a book that says, like, I killed WCW. And I'm really kind of pissed because I'm waiting for the book to say that I, also sold the Braves, sold the Falcons, the Thrashers, sold Phillips Arena. I mean, they basically sold every asset that they had because the company went belly up.
And then they canceled the TV shows, which was essentially the deathbed for the company.
I mean, it was one of those situations where, if you've got to, I think at the lowest we went, I think we were still doing like a steady 2.8 to 3. I think beside Closer right now on TBS and TNT, there's nothing that does anything near that.
Right.
And it's like, you look at original programming, 52 weeks a year, not 17, not 16, not 12, not 23. I mean, you're talking in 3 hours of television. Yeah. And you look at they were saying that the cost with talent was like $560. I did a crummy series called Swamp Thing that was syndicated. That the budget was, and the budget in 1991 or 92 was $870 for a half-hour show, and we were doing 3 hours at a budget of $560, including talent and production. So if you look at it, you look at the numbers and everything else, you go to yourself like, okay, if you want to look at this, but you got to look at things as a business. Mm-hmm. And wrestling will always be treated. I mean, the only reason that wrestling gets any kind of respect is because Vince demands it. Vince goes in and smacks those people from Fox around and says, "You're just going to take a show. We're going to put it out here. This is what we're going to do." And that's the way Vince runs the show. And he walks in there, and when he walks out, they're just happy to have him, because he does do numbers. I mean, I think they're the top-rated show on that on the network they are at SmackDown.
Yeah, and that was similar to the situation you were just describing about the business aspect of this. And that's the piece that, as you said, a lot of wrestling fans don't get, is that there was all those business dealings. And even before that, when the corporate heads Time Warner came in and wanted to make some changes to WCW that didn't make any sense to wrestlers or wrestling fans. It wasn't one move or one person that caused the demise of WCW.
Well,
it was basically that the company didn't want to have anything to do with it anymore.
Well, number one, they came in and they brought in standards and practice now that came into the booking meetings.
Yeah.
Well, and I remember one time we were sitting there and Barrett Bischoff says, "Why are they gaining ground?" I says, "We just had to can Lenny and Lodi, and they've got Val Venus, a porno star, Jeff Jameson in the shower."
Mm-hmm.
I said, you tell me if you're a 17-year-old guy which one you want to watch.
Yeah.
It's just it's simple. Two things sell and always will sell: sex and violence. Those are things that will always sell in our business,
even in today's economy. And
Absolutely.
Alcohol, booze.
Absolutely. You know what? You go by the economy. We can be in a depression. On a Friday night, you won't be able to park in the best strip club in town. You won't find parking. I mean, that's just the way it is. People are going to still escape. People will still go to movies. People will still try to escape the doldrums of their life. That's just the way it is. And wrestling is escapism.
The second part of that question before we take a quick time out was, did WWE bury WCW once it acquired it? Did they handle the acquisition well? Did they present the brand as it should have been presented, in your opinion?
Well, I mean, to me, they could have got 3 years of TV out of just the war. But what they did was they basically, and I look at it from a WWE standpoint. If you just conquered the Confederate Army and had them, turn their arms over to you, would you the next day give them the arms back and say, okay, now we're going to go head to head at this next pay-per-view. We're going to split 5 matches apiece. I mean, for 2 or 3 years earlier, Bischoff was saying he wanted to put Vince out of business, and Vince, didn't have the money that Turner machine had.
Yeah.
The difference was that Vince was a wrestling company and we were a TV company, and Vince knew what the hell he was doing. In the long run, Vince, Vince did what I always equated to Vince to the rope-a-dope. Vince let Foreman punch himself out and went out and won it. That's exactly what he did, and God bless him. I talked to him a couple months ago, and I've always I consider him a friend. I consider him somebody that I'm we haven't always gotten along. We haven't always done eye, but I have the utmost respect for that man, because he is, like I've said before, if you're going to go to war with a guy, I always knew that if he and I went out, Smith and Walensky's, we walked out, some guy pulled out a gun, was going to take both our wallets, we'd both be dead, because there's no way that one of us wasn't going to go down for the other one. So.
Yeah. Well, this is Kevin Nash on the Pro Wrestling Report on 540 ESPN. We're going to take a brief timeout. When we come back, we're going to play Word Association, talk about this Friday's Blizzard Brawl coming to Milwaukee, and talk about the day NWO invaded WWE. This is the Pro Wrestling Report on 540 ESPN.
Get in the ring Monday nights after Raw. It's the Pro Wrestling Report on 540 ESPN.
We're back here on the Pro Wrestling Report on 540 ESPN. Damian Nelson, the man they call Meathead, and the Cause, here with our very special guest from TNA Wrestling, Kevin Nash. Kevin, thank you for staying with us for that brief timeout. Before we went to break, we were talking about WCW and its demise and WWE's acquisition of that company. Now, Kevin, we were in attendance here in Milwaukee's Bradley Center in February of 2003 when the NWO, or 2002 rather, when the NWO made its debut in WWE, along with Hulk Hogan and Scott Hall. It was you. How was that night? What did that night mean to you, coming back to WWE and bringing the NWO into WWE?
Well, to me, the storyline was that they were going to bring this cancer in, and then we came into this watered-down speech.
Yeah.
But I know that when I walked out that night, I was like, wow, the Beatles at Che. We were pretty over.
Oh God, yeah. Did anybody expect that? Because it was deafening in the Bradley Center. I remember.
You know what? We left Rock and Austin Lane and Joe Louis, and I've got a picture that's like a beauty shot that's like, 17,000 people standing, cheering with their two top baby faces laying, and then we go to the Rosemont, and Rock and Hogan go nose to nose, and they chant Hogan. It was one of those deals where, like, what almost put them out of business was in front of them once again, and it was stronger than what they had.
Yeah.
And, I mean, if I was one of the guys that worked for the company at that time, I would have walked in the vents and said, let me get this right. These guys are going to beat us at WrestleMania. Mm-hmm. These guys have almost put us out of business. So instead of doing business, and making that thing work, because I owned it, I mean, it was, with that What T-shirt was the number one selling T-shirt for like 4 or 5 weeks.
Yeah.
And in 3 days, we were outselling that shirt. So, I mean, it's one of those situations where, once again, the boys dictated over business what was right. Originally we were supposed to beat Austin and then screw The Rock. It turned out Austin beat me and Scott, and Hogan turned babyface and beat up me and Scott again.
Mm-hmm. And it seemed as if
it makes sense.
It seemed as if that was one of those situations where WWE actually did react right away. And we saw that the NWO and WWE thing last for a couple months. I mean, obviously that big match at WrestleMania involving Hogan and Rock was long been talked about. But that was one of those things where, it seemed like catch them off guard, a little bit by surprise. And I tell you, I didn't know what to expect being there in the arena that night, and just actually when the moment hit, it's like, wow, this is pretty historic to have not only the NWO, but to have Hulk Hogan, Kevin Nash, and Scott Hall back here in the WWE where it all, was at the time with WCW being gone. It was a pretty special night.
Yeah, it was for me. I remember, like, in the back, like, there's few nights in my life that when I was behind the curtain that I felt like I had a lightning bolt come out of my ass, and it was one of those nights just, it was like, God, like I could have, it was incredible. It was, you could feel it, just that electric energy in that building. And when we came through that curtain, it was just like, whoa. I said, man, like this, it was better than we thought it would be. Mm-hmm. And then we came out, we hit at the end of the night, and, we grounded Steve and got heat on him. And, it was just one of those nights where you look at it and you go, phew. In retrospect, you look at it and go, there's so few nights like that in your life. But, they went other ways with it. That's not my call. Mm-hmm. We can all say, what if this and what if that and what if that, but that's not the way it happened. But we did have that night. We had Joe Louis. We had Rosemont. I mean, you put The Rock, who was the hottest babyface, in an ambulance and smash it with a truck, and the crowd chants.
Yeah, but then unfortunately, The Rock was back next week.
Kid's resilient. Samoans are tough.
That was your second run in WWE. Tell us, reflect back on what you would have to say would be your greatest moment in your WCW years.
WCW? Oh, my greatest moment, WCW.
Or at least the moment you remember most, the most memorable moment of your time in WCW.
I think the first night coming out with Scott, because Scott and I were such good friends in New York, and we were like, we were truly outsiders.
Yeah.
That locker room, you talking about despise. Because every time we open our mouth, our sentence started with, well, up in New York.
Oh, yeah. I hate that. Go to any company from another.
Hey, speaking of up in New York, when you did the impression of Vince McMahon, did you call Vince and let him know that you're going to be dressing as him?
It was a nice wig, by the way.
They sprung it on me. But, see, I actually snuck in my own line. I said, I don't know why I'm doing this. I guess I'm just burning a bridge, which I thought was funny.
But clearly not, because it seems as if there's almost no way to do that nowadays in wrestling. But
I think that he gets it. I think that that he knows the people that truly respect him. When stuff goes wrong, there's people that reach out to him when he's in. Whenever he needs somebody, I think there's certain guys that he knows he can count on. So it's just, I always say this that There was Vinny Vegas, there was Oz, there was Master Blaster, and then when I walked into Greenwich, Connecticut, into his house, and he looked at me, I became Diesel. And with Diesel, I made money, and Diesel, you know, I live on the ocean because of Vince McMahon, nobody else. So.
And you talk about that, the outsiders in WCW. That was, you know, back when, I mean, it was done brilliantly by WCW up till, I believe it was Bash at the Beach when you and Hall put Bischoff through the table. You just hadn't seen stuff like that yet. That was before McMahon got stunner. That was before all that. And it was just so cutting edge then.
It had that, you know, what it was is, you know, it had that feeling of realism.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You know, where guys would watch a show for 2 hours and go, you know, all this is bull crap.
Right.
But those guys with those aluminum baseball bats at the end. I remember one time Bischoff came to me at the end of the night. He goes, man, we got this thing red hot. This WCW is red hot. And I said, God, dude, you didn't even get it, do you? I said, do you understand that 2 guys from the WWF have come into your territory, and we held 50 guys at bay tonight, and the people bought it?
Yeah.
Like that's how your company's perceived. like the 2 top guys from New York can come into your company and take it over, and it's believable. I said there's where we're at. He looked at me and goes, God, you're right.
Did it feel surreal?
It was surreal. I mean, to me, it was like when, you know, and that was basically Eric's idea. It was a kind of a rehash of a Japanese angle that they did. And where guys jumped from, I think, All Japan to New Japan, or vice versa. And like he ran it by me, and I said, "Yeah, okay, that you know." And as you know, it progressed. It became so organic. But like he had that vision. That was Eric's vision. And Kevin Sullivan was booking at the time, and Sullivan booked heat. So he wouldn't let that heat dissipate. He just let it to the point where it was like, who is going to stop this guys? And when Hogan came down, it's like, oh God, here's our savior.
And nobody, I mean, we're marks, we'll admit that, but I mean, even at that time, you couldn't have called that was going to happen. Nobody knew it was going to be Hogan. It seemed like he was coming down to save. I think it was Randy Savage, and as the ring just littered.
Oh God, it was I mean, it was that 1960 heat where guys got shivved going back. I mean, I actually knocked the guy out in the ring that night.
Yeah.
Like,
wow. Mean Gene Okerlund had nothing to do with it. Why did you hit him?
I mean, it was. I mean, I'd live 12 miles from that arena, right down the beach. I live in the Daytona Beach area where we had that, where the NWO was born, which is kind of ironic.
Yeah.
And I mean, every time I drive by that building, I look at it, it's just like, wow, man, like what a night that was. Because, you know, for the split second, you know, for that split second, man, it became real. Like people were just, I mean, they had guns that had killed us.
Yep.
I mean, that just doesn't happen, you know. It's like people actually bought the Copperfield made the Statue of Liberty.
Come on now, I was young. I didn't know any better. I thought he could really do it.
To the point where they actually filed, you know, charges against Copperfield.
You've been a part of so many historic nights, and as we said, going from WWF to WCW to WWE, now part of TNA Wrestling. And TNA's got a big pay-per-view coming up this Sunday night, final resolution of which you are part of the main event, as the main event Mafia goes up against several members of the TNA front line. Now, in this match, sort of bizarre, to be honest with you. If anybody from the front line wins, AJ gets the title.
Okay, so this is my whole deal. If I'm Samoa Joe, are you going to let anybody beat? I mean, I don't know. I mean, to me, it's just like if I was Samoa Joe, like I was the champion, I got cheated.
Yeah.
You know, I got cheated by Nash. How does AJ? Because AJ's dad smacked him around, he gets the title.
That's the way it's been sold.
I don't know. I'm just saying. I'm just trying to put some dissension in case any of those guys.
Well, I mean, put all the sense into it you want. It's still not making any sense.
But you know what? Here's what's smart, and we talked about this last week on this very program. What the main event Mafia and what TNA has done, at least from my standpoint, is that we even talked earlier with you about how they've brought all these big names in and all these great superstars, and each of them were doing their own thing. Now they've got this faction of all those great named stars that are prevalent in the programming. It seems as if that's a smart move, at least to get that notoriety out there, or at least get people to, even if you're catching flippers on Thursday night when Impact is on, people who are flipping through, they're like, wow, all these guys are here? To put them all in one place, it seems to make some sense.
It's strange because it takes time. When you're when they're really not blind. I mean, we're not, like I said, they're not publicizing like TNA wrestling on Raw. They're not putting it on SmackDown.
Uh-huh.
Yet on our TNA, they run their SmackDown Raw video game.
Yeah.
They run that ad 7 times.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
You're right.
You're right.
I mean, I watched it the other night and I went, wow, imagine that, cross-promotion.
Yep.
Put wrestling programming on a wrestling program. But
you think so far out of the box, Kevin.
I know. It's call me I'm like it's madcap. But my son texted me today, and he said, Dad, because my son has he's never really watched wrestling. He doesn't like wrestling. I think to him he equates it to Dad being gone.
Yeah.
He said, what's with the mafia? He said, WTF, the mafia thing.
Wow.
He's 12.
Yeah, okay.
So I texted him back. I said, it's the main event mafia. And I told him, I said, it's me, Kurt, Booker, Sting, and Scotty. So he texted me back. He goes, oh, he said, so you're in it. I said, yeah. He said, well, they said you were with some other group. What's that other group? He's texting me. I said, NWO.
Some other
group.
group.
He has no idea. He has no idea whatsoever.
So you have DVDs and tapes laying around or something?
No, he ain't going to watch it.
And did you get on about that language, too?
He's playing guitar. He really doesn't care about
that.
He lives on the beach, man. He's got it good.
Yeah.
He's 12 years old. He's 6'3", about 180 pounds. He plays guitar.
Oh, so you're already worried.
Yeah, So I told him one thing. I said, you might not like this now. I said, let me tell you something, buddy. I said, Scott Hall's got a son named Cody. He's 6'7". He's 17 years old. I said, you're going to probably be about 6'10", 6'11". I said, do you ever get down on your luck? I said, you find Cody. You grab him. I said, you and Cody walk into Vince's office.
Hall and Nash.
We're Hall and Nash.
There you go. And then, of course,
I guarantee you within 4 years, you guys make 7 figures.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you, Vince from the wheelchair go, book it. Done.
Let's play a game, Kevin.
In a wheelchair. Vince will be squatting 700 still.
Yeah. And telling everybody about it. Let's play word association. We name a name, an event, a location, or whatever, and you tell us first thing pops in your head with a couple of follow-up thoughts.
Just don't say Che Nitro Girl.
Darn, that was number one.
It's funny you say that because actually I'm going to throw this out right away. Nitro Girl stripper cages during commercial breaks.
I thought it was kind of hot.
Because I was uncomfortable when I saw it.
What he's alluding to is, I guess, at an episode of Nitro here in Milwaukee during a commercial break, you and Scott Hall may have gotten into one of them cages.
I think we did. I think we had cocktails before that.
The things wrestling fans remember, Kevin.
You know what? But those are the things that are real because they realize, wow, those guys are hammered.
Maybe that's
on
why
live
I
TV. Yeah, they're hammered on live TV. But that's what I mean, come on. Why to this day can you still watch Animal House and enjoy it?
Yeah. There you go. Very valid. Kurt Hennig.
Kurt Hennig. I have to take a sip of my wine on that one. Kurt Hennig, number one guy, rest his soul. I love him to death. He was one of the few guys that could make me laugh out loud on a daily basis. He was a pleasure to be around. He was a great professional. He loved his family, and he taught me a lot. He was kind of the teacher of Sean, the teacher of Scott. He was the kind of guy that taught those two the business. Basically, he was the Yoda of the clique.
Yeah, and he looks great. We still watch him on ESPN Classic and all those AWA clips. As champion, his promos are just unbelievable. That's what I watch him for. I scan through the other
5 years ahead of his time.
Yeah. Shawn Michaels.
Jordan. Michael Jordan of pro wrestling. Unbelievable. Have a match with the guy. And I remember, like, he and I were getting ready to have our run. And we had, like, 2 or 3, like, matches in Europe, and they were kind of the crabs. And we had a match in Berlin, and he came up to me, and he just said, he said, if I call this thing on the run, can you go? I said, yeah. I said, I'd rather you call it. I said, I don't like laying it down. I said, we know what the finish is. I said, let's just, yeah. I said, if you don't mind, can we call back and forth? And we went out there for about 28 minutes in Berlin and just rocked it. Like, had one of those matches where you come back and you look at each other like, yes. Like, we can take this to Garden. We can take this in the Spectrum. We can take this anywhere. But it took us 3 or 4 to get it because our styles were so completely different.
Yeah. And I remember a great match the two of you had. It was at In Your House. I think it was
Omaha.
Yeah, good friend. I think it was your last match for WWE.
Yeah, my last pay-per-view. The thing was too, people will never give Sean that credit. That was ECW before ECW. We used the fire extinguisher. We used Sean's leg. We used
the broadcast table with Sean's leg. Yes.
Yeah, I mean that
was heinous.
Sean's leg was just as good as the plastic Tyrannosaurus Rex later on.
That match had so much realism to it, though, because you were actually leaving, and they sort of let it out, but never really said it.
Yeah, and and he kicked me, and he put me down. He went out and cut a promo, and he cut a promo like, I'm here to stay, F you, and there was a lot of emotion there because Sean was, Sean, it to me is just still. I watch him, I'm just like, God, man, he still has so much passion.
Yeah.
And he's beat up, and he's really beat up. We're all beat up.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to sit down right now and just and sit in Paul's bus and take a road trip and just tell stories and just watch all of us get up to who gets the next round of beers, just to watch that guy get up out of like a real soft couch and see how long it takes him to get up.
Yeah. And that's that's an interesting point too, because there's always that argument out there: is wrestling a sport? Blah 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 blah. Well, no matter what, so many people downplay the athleticism and the toll that it takes on the body. It's just you go out there night in, night out, and I've never done it, but it's something that needs to be respected. You just go out there and you give your all.
You may never have wrestled, but I guarantee you, living where you live, you've walked in a parking lot and slipped and taken a bump and fell up against a bumper of a car.
Yeah.
I think his last bump was at the Weird Al concert.
That was under the influence.
You just got to pray you weren't sober.
Yeah.
But it's just it does take its toll. That's what people always say to me. They say, "Is wrestling real?" And I got 26 cuts on my body from this business. I'm like, God, I wouldn't want it to be any realer.
Yeah.
It's just.
Eric?
Still got big, giant guys throwing each other around, and we try to take care of each other the best we can, but, boy, accidents happen.
Eric Bischoff.
I thought he was a visionary. I thought he was a man's man. He was the reason he was able to beat Vince's own game because he had a lot of the same personality traits that Vince had. Eric was one of those guys you could be, at 7:30 trying to get, a finish together for the main event, and he'd be telling you what he wanted, and you'd be arguing, he'd be F you, and you'd be F you, and, you'd go out, and he'd want to kill you, and you'd want to kill him, and then that night at the bar you'd see each other, and you'd say, let me buy you a beer, you effer, and, and you hugged him.
It's all good.
Yeah, it was just, he's a guy, Eric was a guy. And people used to read, like, the sheets back then. They'd say, like, oh, he likes hanging around all these big guys because, and it wasn't it at all. Like, Eric was cool. Eric was a good dude. He was fun to hang out with, and he was a man's man, and, it's a man's business, you know, and that's why Vince has always had the respect he has. Vince is a man's man, and so is Eric.
Yeah. You know, we're watching the chatosphere, as I call it, here on PWRshow.com as well, and a lot of people have asked, so I'm going to throw the name out there. Rey Mysterio, what was it like to throw him like a lawn dart?
You know, when it first happened, because like we were really rushed for time because like those guys had like some matches earlier for like another thing. So like they came back there, and Ray said to me, he said I'm gonna jump off, you know, of this railing on top of this trailer. He says, can you catch me and throw me through that window?
You don't get asked that every lifetime.
Yeah.
Throw me through this window, please.
If you don't mind, while you're standing there.
Throw me through that window. I said, Ray, there's glass in that window. I said, what? I said, if I throw you against the trailer, I said, can you get your hands out and catch yourself? He said, yeah. Well, he didn't get his hands out. He took the damn thing, and it was one of those, you know what, man, and to Ray's credit, I mean, it was one of those moments that if I talk to 100 people, 95 people will bring up the fact, God, that when you lawn darted Rey Mysterio, and people always try to recreate those situations.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's like losing your virginity. It happens once. It's done. You know, there's never going to be a Rey Mysterio jumping into my hands and somebody lawn darting him into a damn crappy trailer.
And it was all his idea.
Yeah, it was. It was all Ray. So I'll give him all the credit. I was the stunt dummy. I was the catcher tossee. Ray did the rest, as usual.
Jim Cornette.
God, you know what? I used to hate him. I used to want to just kill him. I mean, if you'd asked me this 6 months ago, I would have went on some kind of a just Kevin Nash tyrant.
Even that recently, huh?
No, 6 months ago. But, you know, he and I had like a little bit of a spat, and we hashed it out. And then we sat one night, we were working with some guys, and they put, like, he and I, like, in charge of making sure they got their finish right. And this finish went back and forth, and he and I, like, you know, we're so on the same page. And I'm like, how am I on the same page with Jim Cornette? And as the night went on, I was just like, because he's smart. Like, I remember I had an economics geography teacher at the University of Tennessee named Dr. Cherry, and he came in the first day, and he was like, hi, my name's Dr. Cherry. And I was like, oh, God, this guy's an idiot. You know? So I was from Detroit, and the guy spoke like, you know, he sounded like he was going to change my oil. The guy was absolutely brilliant. I mean, the guy was a brilliant professor, and I learned probably more in that class than I did in any other class when I was in college. And it's just like sometimes Cornette comes across as so like just, you know, so cracker, but at the same time it's like, God, the guy's really got a good brain for the business. And I think in the last 6 months, maybe it took me, like I've told several of my friends, it took me 49 years to grow up. Yeah. So, but I got a lot of respect. He's got a good mind.
Coming up this Friday night, Kevin, you're going to be back here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. It's Great Lakes Championship Wrestling presenting Blizzard Brawl 4. You got a big match lined up with B.G. James. And,
Road Dogg.
Road Dogg, yes. Milwaukee, you've been here in and out of this town many a time. What do you think of when you think, I'm going to Milwaukee?
I'm not leaving sober.
You got the right town.
All month long, for the last 2 months, I think in the newspaper, has been this feature about how drunk Wisconsin is and how bad it is. And I think
how is that bad?
Yeah,
I'm just praying to God. I'm just praying to God that the Skyliner Lounge out there is still open.
Louis Black, I don't know if you're familiar with him, a comedian, did a great bit about Milwaukee. It was actually Madison he was talking about. He said, I think you people have some type of federal grant to drink. He said, I think it might be true. But coming up this Friday night, GLCW, the website is blizzardbrawl.com. You've got an active weekend coming up, the big pay-per-view this Sunday night from TNA as well. And, we really appreciate you spending this time on a Monday night with us, talking to us. We look forward to seeing more of you on Friday night. Do you have anything in closing for all of the fans listening all over the world and here in southeastern Wisconsin?
Yeah, please come out on Friday night because I think, it gets a chance to be up close and personal. And I was up in British Columbia. I did a spot show, independent thing up there a couple months ago. And, God, there were so many people that brought, like, archaic, like, NWO Yeah, it's not even the black and white anymore. It's the gray and white because the shirt's been washed so many times. And and the people say like, "Hey man," and it's funny. Like as your career begins, like you just pray that somebody asks you for an autograph, and as you get to that point where you're kind of a star, then it's like, oh, well, I tell you, this autograph thing is because you're an ass. You just turn into an ass. Everybody goes through it, and then at the end of it, you realize it's just like you're like water in the tub. It's like it's almost empty.
Yeah.
And like I get a chance to spend time with people that that have been fans for a long time, and people that bring things to sign that. And I was on an autograph session a couple weeks back, and this guy's trying to hurry the people through, and I'm like, hey, whoa, like this guy kept this magazine for 11 years for me to sign. I think another guy had a Polaroid. He goes, you know who this is? I'm like, no, it's like this little kid with curly black hair. He goes, that was me 14 years ago.
Wow.
It's a Polaroid. He goes, I didn't get a chance to get signed because they said you couldn't sign because you were in a hurry.
Yeah. Wow.
And here's a kid that kept me that. That means the world to you when you get, when it's the end of the run, when you realize, man, because that's what it's always been about. It's always been about the fans. It's you go out to an empty arena, it ain't fun. It's always been about the fans. But it's just, early in your career you want it, and then at the end of your career, man, you finally appreciate it.
Well, we certainly appreciate you taking the time to be with us tonight, Kevin. Best of luck to you Friday night. We look forward to seeing you on Sunday night as well on TNA's pay-per-view coming up.
Thanks for cutting me off because I was about to weep.
Oh, sorry. I'll make a phone call to some friends down there and bring you some tissue. No, I'm just kidding. Kevin, thank you so much for joining us.
You guys going to be at the show?
For sure.
We'll be there.
For sure. Meathead and myself are actually doing commentary. Frank's going to be working the stick in the back, and we'll be having a good old time Friday night.
We're all going to meet for cocktails.
Well, of course.
Skyline.
Afterwards, it's all on our friend, the proprietor of Championship Wrestling.
We're going to call Dave and tell him he's buying.
That's right.
It's on DH.
Thank you so much, Kevin Nash. We're going to take a timeout. When we come back, we got more about Blizzard Brawl 4 coming up this Friday night with the DH, Dave Hero. This is the Pro Wrestling Report on 540 ESPN.
This is the Miller High Life Delivery Guy, and you listen to Good Honest Sports Talk on 540 ESPN.